The problem with HBO's upcoming Harry Potter reboot is essentially the same as any other major franchise reboot, with a few additions that are special to the vaunted franchise. The primary issue is simply that rebooting such an iconic franchise comes with a host of prospective flaws which are exacerbated by issues inherent in streaming television. First of all, there's the cast. Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and really everyone involved in the original series are so tied to their roles that it seems like a fool's errand to even attempt a recast. So far, we have a smattering of casting news with more on the way. Nick Frost has been cast as Hagrid, John Lithgow as Dumbledore, Janet McTeer as Professor McGonagall, Papa Essiedu as Snape, plus Paul Whitehouse as Filch and Luke Thallon as Professor Quirrell. Something about Dumbledore having already been recast in the original series has softened the blow of Lithgow's casting. Also, John Lithgow rules, so there's that. And McTeer as McGonagall seems like a solid choice. I'm trepidatious about Frost and Essiedu, both actors having to match up to some truly iconic performances. Essiedu in particular has the unenviable task of following up the late Alan Rickman. Of course, any new interpretation of such familiar roles is going to draw comparisons. That's just part of the reboot game. But this version seems committed to reimagining the story through a fresh lens, and so let's see what these talented actors bring to the table. But really, it's the kids who pose the most serious concern. Even with the films, which came out in pretty rapid succession, the child actors aged nearly too fast for the filmmakers to keep up with. The longest gap between entries was 2 years between Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, with the actors aging more or less in alignment with their characters. Radcliffe, for example, was 20 years old when he finished Deathly Hallows Part 2. Just 2 years older than his character, so not too shabby. It helps that these were 2-hour movies being made and not 8-episode seasons. What concerns me, and others, is that pumping out these long seasons of television on an annual basis feels like a Herculean task. This wouldn't be an issue for, say, a simple drama series, but Harry Potter is a massive ordeal containing a smorgasbord of effects work and massive scale that could easily get one over on the filmmakers. That said, Game of Thrones nearly pulled off an annual release, so there is a precedent for taking massive, complicated schedules and making them fit into tight release dates. However, with the main characters all being literal children, more questions arise as to how the production team will keep the seasons from falling behind. There are a lot of restrictions that come with child actors, and so pumping out 8 hours of television every year could prove to be one hell of a challenge. Small aside, I've seen some concern that the 8-hour runtime is too little for some of the later books. I think there's two problems with that concern. One being that we simply don't know how long the later seasons will even be. It's not unheard of for shows to change the episode count as they go. Just look at, White Lotus. Both larger and smaller, so it's entirely plausible that upping the episode count is part of the plan. The other issue, as far as I can see it, is that we've already seen the books done justice with far shorter runtimes. By essentially tripling the runtimes of the movies, Deathly Hallows aside, I don't see why the showrunners couldn't fit more than enough of the book's narratives into 8-episode intervals. I don't have much of a point here, other than to say I think concern over the actual number of episodes is silly and unfounded until we've seen a full season of the show. There are also issues with the source material which have become very dated over time, such as the fat-phobic depiction of Dudley Dursley, the house elves being enthralled by their own enslavement, the parallels between the goblins and harmful Jewish stereotypes, and characters with names like Cho Chang. While things like Cho and Dudley can be fairly easily retconned into a more modern lens, elements like the house elves are so key to the story that it's hard to imagine them being changed in any significant way. Now, there is one other elephant in the room that I've got to bring up, and that's J.K. Rowling herself. No matter what your socio-political views, it's hard to ignore the fact that she's a controversial figure, and her comments on the trans community have alienated her fan base extensively. The backlash has been pretty monumental, including Daniel Radcliffe amongst those with strong opinions on the matter, and boycotts have been staged against all forms of Harry Potter media and properties, including planned boycotts of this very reboot. It doesn't help matters that HBO's Casey Bloys has stated that Rowling is, quote, fairly involved in the process of selecting the writer and director, following that up by stating that she will likely have an effect on casting as well. That all said, I think the primary issue at play is still the very nature of reboots. You could certainly apply the death of the author theory to Rowling's involvement, which basically means that no matter what her opinions, one should judge the show on its own merits. Those merits could very well be done in such a way as to earn high critical praise. After all, we've got the creative minds behind Succession in the driver's seat, so there's reason enough to believe we're in good hands. Now, having said that, we're also quite a bit of time out from seeing how this all goes down. The series is likely to arrive sometime in 2026, but for all we know, that could be pushed back. We won't really know much about any of these issues until we at least get a glimpse at some footage, and in the case of the actors aging, who knows, maybe they can pull it off. After all, this is a reboot of one of the most successful franchises of all time. It wouldn't be too crazy to imagine HBO taking the necessary extra steps to keep the series on schedule. But what do you think? Is this reboot even a good idea in the first place? Will you be watching it? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching ScreenRant.